everyone. Okay, I'm Brooklyn Calloway, and this is episode 3 of the Guts to Fail. Our guest today is I call her my CFO. Her name's Jami, but we go way back. I think the first time we met was at my neighbor's house because you've been friends with Jeanette forever. Then her husband was Linky's baseball coach. So we got to talk in the stands all the time. That was after she became my CFO. And so I got extra meetings with her, which was unfair to everyone else, but great for me. So a little bit about Jami. She owns PJS Co. It's an online system of CPAs across the nation. My words, not hers, but she's not a pencil pusher. She's not like, ooh, let me code your books. She wants to have meetings with you. She wants to say, okay, you're getting money from this bucket. This is how much you're over last year on this day from this, and you don't do that anymore, and you should focus on this. And she gives me goals and things that I had never thought that I would even know about my business. I can be like, oh yeah, I know that number. And it feels really good. But our first couple of meetings, everything you said, even though it was dumbed down for my 4-year-old, a 4-year-old, I don't have a 4-year-old. Oh goodness. Oh, sorry. Even though it was dumbed down for a child, I would still cry and get this anxiety because I was just failing and insecure about what you were talking about altogether. So we're no longer there. And you're amazing. And I want everyone to know where you started, where you are now, and all the little lessons in between. So welcome, Jami Johnson,
Hey.
PJS Co CPAs.
Good morning, Brooklyn. Yeah, no, we totally appreciate you having us on and having me on. And I feel like I've got lots of failing points, but they have been incredibly pivotal in other successes that I've had in ways that I never would have ever dreamed or expected. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Both of my grandfathers actually owned trucking businesses back in the 40s and 50s. My dad he owned his own business, and my mom is an artist, and she owned her own business actually to kind of get through my brother and sister through school, through college and everything. And so she's been an entrepreneur. My brother's an entrepreneur, so you can say kind of hits home, you know. So my dad always wanted us to go get an education and go get just get out. Like, I don't want you to be tied to a business like I'm tied to a business and such. And yet here I am. So I did start out, I think like most.
Wait, hold on, back up. He wanted you to get an education so that you wouldn't be tied to owning your own business, because he had his own business because he didn't have an education. Is that what he thought?
No, he didn't want us to have to feel so chained to a business and be on that constant call and just feeling like you'd never have relief and everything, which is a very interesting perspective given how we operate even here at PJS, like, because we are very, very focused, even when we work with our business owners, of making sure that they've got that balance, right? That you don't have to work 80 hours a week to have a great profit or great growth or anything, that there's a balance. But there's obviously modifications that have to happen to be able to do that. So it's very interesting. That was, in his mind, that was the only way. Like, if you owned your business, he was gonna, he was the owner and responsible for everything. And that if something went wrong at 3 a.m, he was up at 3 a.m, and he didn't want to see us, quote unquote, work his life away, like he kind of felt like he was doing, and everything. So
really quick, not sorry for interrupting, but I keep getting amazing questions, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to know. Right now, because I know exactly what you're talking about, being one of those businesses that you mentor and help from a financial standpoint. I mean, even more than that, you help me work smarter. You tell me what to focus on is more passive income and let go of things that are taking so much time. What advice, or where do you think your dad went wrong? Or if he knew blank, it would have made his life so much easier. What was it that he's missing that he didn't, that made him think about entrepreneurship like that?
So backing up just a little bit, I grew up in a really, really small town. It's like town of 1,200 people. So, you know, a lot of times you get your hardest workers there. Like they're the greatest people and they're the hardest workers. But there's also not the ability to see bigger either. I feel like is sometimes in a smaller town that you get capacity restraints. And I think for him, he didn't see any other option. And I think in today's world, there's lots of other options. And those people in the small town can actually dial out and see more virtually. You know, back in the 80s when things were really climbing and his business was really growing, you know, you didn't. You went and you sat down with your banker, you sat down with your CPA, you did all those things. Whereas now, it's a very different perspective of how to approach your business. So I think there was a limitation there, of not even knowing what was possible and what was out there that he could potentially have. So I think because we actually helped him sell his business as well. Him and my uncle owned it together. And as we kind of sifted back through, we had a great lawyer. He had a great lawyer. I'd like to think that he had some great CPAs working on it at the end. And he also had, we always say that it's kind of a trifecta of a great lawyer, great CPAs, and a great banker. And I think everybody found out how important your banking relationship really is, especially in this time period. Those are trusted advisors, and those are people that you don't get in a panic. Those are people that you have in your back pocket, that when the going gets tough, you go, hey, whoa. I need to bounce this off of you. I need to have some idea. He never had that. Everybody kind of took care of what they needed to take care of. His CPA filed the taxes. That was all that they did. And it's no detriment of what CPAs that do that today. We just have found that transfer of knowledge to our business owners increases their value, but it's rewarding and valuable from our side. So I think for him, he had limited resources available. I don't think he understood that he could have more. And I think even today, you still have those barriers where people don't understand what it takes. It doesn't, people get worried about getting on a call with a lawyer and a CPA because you have multiple hundreds of dollars at multiple hourly charges, right? And they're like, ooh, I don't want to pay $2,000 for that meeting. But that $2,000 meeting can save you $20,000 down the road. That can give you peace of mind that you're not laying up at night going, is my business at risk? Should I not have done that? Are they really doing things right? Am I sure? It keeps people accountable. It keeps your professionals and your advisory, and in essence, your on-call executive team accountable, right?
Right.
So that's where we find that transfer of value into and investing in our clients, that they can see bigger, they can see better, but also that they have a team of executives, of on-call executives. Right.
And that is what, just as an example for that, of what you did for me just recently. The Chamber of Commerce here in Frisco put out some sort of grant that was given to the states, then divvied up to the counties, and then given to the cities and something like that. I don't know. But I was like, oh, these are lots of numbers. Oh my gosh, even though I don't cry anymore, I still am not good at it. So I called Jami. I was like, hey, Jami, I want to apply for this grant, but it closes on Tuesday. It just opened on Thursday, and I have all this. It will take me forever to figure this out. She's like, no problem. And within 24 hours, not even that, I had an email with all 11 documents that I needed. She goes, just fill out the form and attach these documents. And I felt like a freaking rock star. I could have owned a 12-story building at that point, and that's how organized I felt. Lease agreements, company, corporation, formation document, you had them all in a folder. You pulled everything, and that right there allowed me to apply for a grant. I don't know if I've gotten yet. I'm pretty sure I should. I have documentation, I know. But down to the penny, I had everything to fill in. And it was the most freeing thing, because as a business owner, I know that the people that are watching this, there's got to be more of me out there that just say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't do that. Numbers aren't my thing. Oh, taxes, I don't even know if I filed those. I mean, books, numbers, inventory, how many you have left. I mean, none of that ever crossed my mind. I mean, it did, but only when I was asleep at night or awakened early in the morning and I was worrying. To not worry about that and to be able to have you on staff. I mean, that's why I call you my CFO. You know all my numbers. You tell me what to do. You give me financial goals. And it does give me the title of this, the guts to fail, because I know that I've got you in my back pocket to help me and say, hey, yeah, that's a calculated risk I would take. Before I make any financial decisions, I call you. So, okay, let's get back and let's ask some questions or tell some stories. Before we hopped on here, I reminded you of that story about going to Vegas or something, and there's nothing scarier than being given your chance. And sometimes the success that comes out of it isn't always the success that you thought you would get. Talk about that story.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes opportunities seem like the best things in the world. And if this could just come through, this could be my big pivotal moment. And this is the time. And I think, we definitely have a good attitude to do that. But I also think that, we have to approach each situation with, okay, if it doesn't happen this way, how am I going to make this make me better? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think as opposed to, so what you're referring to, we actually sponsored, one of the industries that we specialize in is like IT and managed service providers, their companies. And we had one of the biggest, like, business owners are there, like prime audience, and we worked with, a sales rep there that puts on the conference. It was Nashville, Tennessee. And we booked our
sorry.
No, that's okay. Vegas, Nashville. I'll take a vacation right now. But anyways, we worked through them. They got this customized quote for us. Like we had multiple not hundreds. We had hours of meetings with them and everything. And we are so excited, to be able to be there and to add value and have that opportunity to really speak, because it's hard to really get in front of what we do is a more heftier service. It isn't just like ancillary services like bookkeeping and tax prep. We can do that. We don't lead with that. We use that information to put in for valuable information, for cash flow, for budgeting, for all of that. So it's a little bit harder because it is a little bit beefier of a service. Because when you talk about hiring a CFO, it's like, if you went and hired a CFO for your business, you're talking $150,000 to $250,000 for one person. So by no means that's what we cost. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is like, so it's hard to get in front of business owners that are willing to make a decent investment, because this stuff takes time. It's a deep dive on your information. It's knowing your information. It's knowing how to advise you. That is an intimate relationship. We are right. And so we were super excited to do this, and we're like, wow, so they put together they quoted us, we, talked about the add-ons and, all that stuff. We got it all ready to go. I mean, we were waiting on the final documents to sign. We had booked our flights, booked our hotel. We had all this stuff ready to go. And they came back to us and they said, I'm sorry, this is too low for your sponsorship. You need to pay more money. And we're like, well, wait, you gave us that number. We didn't give you, we didn't ask for that number. You gave it to us, and they would not honor it. And so we backed out because there was enough red flags that it was like, and it really sucked because we thought this was our big break, but we learned we're cautious. We're more cautious because marketing efforts, you hear things like coach, and you hear things like different buzzwords especially within the entrepreneur industry. I would speak to us as an industry, and sometimes it's like, that's too good to be true. And sometimes it really is, you really need to evaluate.
Also, weren't backing up a little bit. a little fearful, not fearful, but I know we had conversations. If you had gotten in that room and 15 of the 300 companies there picked you and like, oh my gosh, we didn't know you existed. I want your services. Yeah. You didn't have at that time necessarily the capacity in CPAs to handle that.
Not that much.
Influx. It's like almost like when a soccer team shows up on a school bus to a restaurant and you only have 3 servers on and 2 cooks. You're like, what? So that's kind of scary too. Going back to, what did you do before you started PJS Co? Like,
so what I did, I worked in industry. I've never done like the public accounting.
What does work in industry mean?
So industry means, like the insurance industry, working in the financial industry, I worked for an agricultural. I was born and raised in Midwest Illinois. So ag is kind of the backbone of who we are, right? So I actually worked for an agricultural cooperative right out of college. Let's see, I worked for a bank. I'm sorry. I worked for a bank first out of college. I did some commercial lending, learned amazing things. I can remember, like my like thing is I work really hard. It doesn't matter if I'm playing basketball, which I love to do, or if I'm doing my work or whatever I do it at 110 miles an hour. Like, it's just what I do. And it's kind of my mantra, right?
Right.
And I can remember getting done with my work at the bank, and I was fresh out of college, and I got done with all of my work. I had met with everybody I needed to meet. I was in a smaller bank, and I pulled up solitaire and started playing it. Right. And the guy behind me was like, Jami, like, I probably wouldn't do that. Like, people are, they're walking by and seeing your computer. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I'm done with my work. Like, what? Why would you care? And I can remember that. And I remember going home and like sitting on my bed in my apartment in the suburbia Chicago. And I was like, I was totally out of my element. I was so mad because I was like, I did everything you asked me to do. And I think it was there too that I learned, he's like, you got to go out, like, go ask if anybody has any work. And it's just some things that, it's kind of that new worker, right? Sometimes you got to guide people. And so I feel like points like that, like, allow you to give grace to somebody else and go, maybe nobody's ever said that to them. And as pissed off as it made me at that point in time, like, I was so mad. I was like, how would you ever even question how I'm working or what I'm doing?
How dare you?
What?
Like, how dare you?
I know. It was just like, like, I have done everything you've asked me. But that wasn't the point. The point was to take initiative and to take ownership, right? And I feel like those are some super pivotal points into who we are. And I stopped and I thought, because those people were making an investment in me. And that bank was wonderful for a million amazing reasons, right? But I'm like, I look back and I'm like, thank you. Thank you for caring enough to say something to me. Thank you for being willing to hurt my feelings, because it made me tougher. It made me stronger. It made me think a little bit differently. And it wasn't that I wasn't working hard, but it just gave me a different perspective. Right. Right. So, and I'm going to bring up this one because you actually, I don't think that you know about this failure, because this was a big one in my mind. It was a really hard one to overcome. But when I had never had experience in taxes, and I love taxes, and that's super weird. And my name is Jami and I love taxes. It's weird.
You need a t-shirt, or you need the sticker on your laptop. So when you're at the freaking coffee shop or something, I mean, people will stop and bless your heart.
It is. But I knew that if I wanted any chance to be able to have opportunity to do something I love, that I had never, my experience hadn't lined up with it yet. I just didn't have that opportunity. And I took a job with a local CPA, actually back in the Midwest, and worked virtually. And, I was very upfront about my experience and everything, that I didn't have much, but I was working on some pretty simplistic things. And I didn't screw anybody's taxes up or anything like that. But there were some points that I was like, it was scary. I mean, I was kind of to a degree on my own. And with tax season with CPAs, it's really stressful. People don't have time. And they were super great. They were that I worked with. They were really good, but I was just I had bitten off a little bit more than I could probably have chewed. And it was nerve wracking. But I knew that I had to do it if I was going to do it. If I was going to gain experience, I had to get it. Right. And this was before PJS and Co CPAs. So, just going through that entire stress. And I did, like, at the end of it, I was like, I felt like I just completely let myself down. I felt like there wasn't a great, like, I could have given more. And, you look back and you look at it as a failure. But really.
Do you feel like it was more of you said yes to too much and you don't think you gave 100% to all of it, and now you're taking away?
I gave 100%. However,
100% to 3 clients is different than 100% to 40.
A lot, yeah. And I wasn't actually communicating with the clients. Like, I was getting shifted work and stuff. So I actually wasn't in communication with them. But I felt like, I'm like, man, maybe I should have been more clear. Maybe I should have, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't working as fast as I don't.
I'm missing that part. What part did you think you failed at? Because you said
I felt like at the end, it wasn't a good representation of who I was or how I did work. And I felt like I failed them, which I didn't want to do. And I think it just felt like I was never working fast enough. It felt like I was never, things were just taking me longer,
You didn't apply for solitaire.
What?
You never got to the solitaire.
No. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. And then I found out I was pregnant halfway through tax season, which didn't help anything.
Emotional too.
Yeah, it was. But it was a struggle, because I know on the other end, it was like, they wanted quantity and everything. And it was quality to me. Like, I wanted to put a piece of quality work out there. Right. And the two just wasn't, like, there was just different, you know what I mean? I felt like there was not different expectations, not that there are probably things I could have done better, things they could have done better. Right. But I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at things a little bit more deeper. Yeah. Next time I say yes to something, I'm going to ask other questions. I'm going to make sure that, I'm abundantly clear on my side and be very honest and transparent. That I don't have 10 years of tax experience or, whatnot, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and kind of, even just getting through that and kind of having to swallow down that I don't feel like the end result of who I was as a professional was mentally the same person that I wanted them to see. Right. And I think that was really a tough thing. But I also didn't expect that person to sit down and have a therapy session with me so that I could explain that that's not really who I was. And you kind of have to be okay with that and go, you know what, I'm going to learn, I'm sure there were things I could have done better. What could I have done better? And how do I make me better and those around me better?
Okay. So that leads me to this question, and then we're going to get to the Facebook user. I don't know who's asking the question, but it's a good question. So we'll get to that one. When you went from what you saw as a failure, enough to talk about it on here, right? You said, I'm not good. I haven't done taxes. You were honest about it up front, but you felt like it wasn't the best representation of you. When you come from that failure and knowing how you are and how hard of a worker and how don't tell me I'm not a hard worker kind of girl you are, and you're self-critical like I am, and you have the biggest expectations of yourself. No one else can have higher expectations of yourself. Right. How do you go from that to, I'm going to start my own company? Like, where did you get the confidence? Where did that come from?
So at that time, I was still working with my other 2 owners right now that I own PJS and Co CPAs with. So the opportunity came at the end of the year. Were able to buy a book of business. And so our book of business, so like our clients and everything that we were servicing, we actually had the opportunity to buy that business. And so we took our clients, and so that opportunity came up. Like, So I found out I was pregnant during the midst of that failure, and my baby had just been born when we finally when we got introduced to, do you want to take on this business? So side note, the other two owners that I had worked that owned PJS with me, we actually had never met face to face. I had worked with them for about 3 years at that point. But I had never met them face to face. So we were investing in a business and we had never met. We had worked together. We had a very good relationship, very great, I should say, a great relationship, very moral and ethically sound. But then, so taking that and knowing my limitations and also knowing the opportunity that I was able to take and to buy that book of business with them, two women. And we actually worked for 3.5 years before we met for the first time face to face.
Wow.
And people go, oh my gosh, you bought a business and you worked with people you've never met? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I've never met most of my staff. So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So when the opportunity presented yourself to buy your book of business, you were working for someone else. And they said, you know what, we're getting out of this. Whatever, do you want to buy your clients? Yep. And then y'all got together and like,
we're doing this. Yeah.
So yeah. The opportunity presented itself, even if it's not something you would have gone out and looked for at that moment, but God was like, here you go.
Right. And we had talked about, the three of us had talked about kind of going out anyways before we had the opportunity. We weren't really sure. We had, like I said, it happened that we were kind of already working together really well. So we had talked about, possibly doing something anyways. And then, everything kind of changed courses, and literally within 30 days, we were signed, sealed, and delivered on documents. So
starting your business was more about renaming something that already existed and y'all taking over the ownership of it.
Yeah.
And then growing that.
Taking everything we had existing, had grown under somebody else. That person was not, didn't really have relationships with our clients. Like the relationships lied with us, and everything. And so we were, it was a little nerve-wracking. You know what I mean? It's nerve-wracking buying a book of business and buying your clients. I mean, we had those relationships. They were really great. But, it is nerve-wracking because you're not buying like a building you can sell. You're not buying, if somebody leaves you and your revenue leaves, like that's just the way it is. Right. But we felt very confident in what we had, and also the value that we really felt like we could bring, and the change that we could bring to those businesses too.
Okay. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you did that because y'all are very good at it. So in the last 2 or 3 minutes here, tell me what advice, let's go with this question because this is a good question. I'm going to put it up there. What is one thing you would advise someone who's starting their first business that they must do financially? And what thing would you say don't do based on your experiences starting your own business and as a CPA and a CFO, and just the kind of advice you give me and stuff? Answer that question.
Sure. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm not even going to say CPA. You need to have a good lawyer, a great lawyer, a lawyer that knows your business, get to know. And it's a little bit of investment, but you get people that say they want to start a business and everybody wants to keep costs to a minimal, which is great. But you get what you pay for. So if you go to Rocket Lawyer and you want them to push out all of your documents, like, not that Rocket Lawyer is not good, but I'm just saying that, like, for instance, when the pandemic happened or when a legal case comes up or whenever, like, are you going to go to Rocket Lawyer? And then you're going to have to go explain your story and what you've done and why you did it. And you're not really going to know how. So get that lawyer. I would say that's a huge thing, is to have a lawyer from a structuring perspective, from a legal perspective. And I think you really need a good CPA to help you with entity structure, to help you with, you need to be willing to invest in those things to get a really strong foundation, and not to be willing to, like, there's nothing worse than a business owner coming to us and going, hey, I want you to do this, this, and this, and this. And then you shoot them a price and then they go, I'm not paying that. And it's like, okay, well then you can't have all these things. You don't get those, you don't get everything covered for $200, guys. Like it just doesn't happen. So you are going to, I'm not saying don't go somewhere and not be willing to pay, but get somebody that knows you, that gets your business, that understands that. It's that trusted advisor team, and get a banking relationship. Those
Yeah.
three.
And just to, so a lot of the people that follow me from the past, I mean, we are crafty. We teach wreath workshops and furniture painting. And I'm like, what the hell do I need a lawyer for? And a CPA, I mean, you know, they pay me on PayPal. But here's the deal. I didn't get you until like, what, 2 years ago? Maybe
Year and a half. Yeah.
enough.
It was the beginning of 2019.
If I had you from the beginning, I don't even want to freaking think about that, because I would be so much further than I am now. If you're going to start a business and you aren't willing to get a lawyer or a CPA, then you're not starting a business. You are just going all in on a hobby, because I was all in on a hobby, and I was hamster wheel spinning the wheels. And until I got you and I got serious about doing the crap that I wasn't good at, I didn't have a business. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching The Guts to Fail, a entrepreneurial series that helps everyone know that we all are in it to win it, and you can't win unless you take risks. I appreciate you showing up, and if you'd like to connect with our guest today, please click below or join my highly engaged community of entrepreneurs by clicking Bungalow U.